President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey, and it has sent shockwaves through Congress. Comey has been testifying before various congressional committees investigating whether Russia meddled in the 2016 election. So what's going to happen to those investigations? Do you think he'll be there tomorrow? We're going to keep talking about this morning and bring in lawmakers as we have them. But I got Jeffrey Toobin here right now, our senior legal correspondent. And this idea of Jim Comey being taken out for Hillary Clinton seems to defy logic, doesn't defy politics. People were upset about how Comey handled it. Certainly Democrats were upset. Notably, President Trump was not upset. He has applauded what Jim Comey said. He has said other things as well, really very few, but he has said Comey did her a big favor. But he has been overall applauding, and that makes you feel that it can't be about Hillary Clinton. Fair assessment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't just once. It was throughout the fall where candidate Trump saluted Comey and quoted Comey about Hillary Clinton's
he kissed
behavior.
Comey, or at least tried to.
That was after he became president.
That's right.
That was in the Oval Office. So the idea, and also just, I think our viewers, I think people are sophisticated. Does anyone really believe that Donald Trump was upset and angry that Jim Comey was too mean to Hillary Clinton?
And Huma Abedin.
I mean, it's just
last night,
totally
people were spinning. And, you know, this is true, by the way. It's not getting a lot of attention. But for Abedin's sake, it should be out there. Jim Comey grossly overstated what kind of emails and how many she had passed along to her husband, Anthony Weiner, and for what purpose. But the idea that the Trump administration cared about that, and that's motivating this now at all times when the president's Twitter thread is filled with his desire to oppose the Russia investigation, strains credulity. But let's talk to somebody who is now going to be charged with doing something about this. Joining us now, Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine, serves on the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. Senator, thank you for being with us. What do you make of this move?
Well, there are a whole lot of pieces of it, Chris, that are very strange. Number one, what's Jeff Sessions doing involved in this? I'm sure you have on tape somewhere when he recused himself, he said he's going to have nothing to do with the Russia investigation in any way, shape, or form, directly or indirectly, and yet he is involved in firing the guy who's leading the investigation for the FBI. Number two, the timing, as you've pointed out, is just doesn't make any sense. They supposedly, according to the memo, fired James Comey for stuff that he did last summer or last fall, and suddenly now they say, oh, well, he's got to go. They could have fired him on January 21st if that was something that really bothered him. There's another little sub thing about the timing. All the memos yesterday that came out justifying this were dated yesterday. In other words, it all came together in a matter of hours compared with what we learned a couple of days ago. It took the White House 18 days to decide to fire Mike Flynn after they learned that he was a blackmail threat. So all of that is, the timing just doesn't pass the straight face test in terms of what's the real motivation for this. The other piece is, the complaints about Comey were political, that he had, and he once testified at our committee, he has a political tin ear. He's not very good at politics. But he is a man of real integrity, an experienced prosecutor and investigator, and so that's a problem. The final piece is, you asked, Chris, what do we do? We've got to have a special prosecutor. There's no public confidence in this process now on the FBI side. Remember, there's a Senate Intelligence Committee investigation. That's a separate issue. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there has to be a special prosecutor or a special counsel in order to restore some confidence in this. I just don't understand this decision. It instead of settling anything, it absolutely raises suspicions in virtually everybody's minds.
Well, right, and if you understand it through that lens, this is something he wanted to do. The timing is obviously, just one indication of how obvious the move was. But we'll see what happens next. You just put up an alternative there that requires some discussion. Special prosecutor or special counsel. Now, the audience is going to be getting a speed up on all of this. Those are two very different things. A special counsel would be someone, as you know, Senator, who's appointed by the DOJ right now and has some degree of independence. But They ain't no special prosecutor. That was designed by statute. It expired in '99. It was obviously born during the Watergate era to deal with some of the confusions that we have right now once again.
Right.
But that person would be picked by a three-judge panel and completely insulated from any kind of political tampering. I know Nixon still fired Archibald Cox, but they were forced to replace another special prosecutor. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than the special counsel. Do you think there's any chance you could get legislation from Republicans to effectively police the president?
Well, I think it's going to be tough because some people are defending this decision, but I believe that's something we got to do. The bottom line here, Chris, is public confidence. And if the administration doesn't have anything to hide, they ought to be cooperating and helping with this, because otherwise this issue is going to dog them for years, and it's just going to keep being a dark cloud over whatever they do. They ought to be cooperating. So I'm going to urge my Republican colleagues to join some kind of effort to create a special prosecutor position, because, as I say, otherwise it just keeps going on. Now, I had a fun idea in the middle of the night, Chris. I think our committee, the Intelligence Committee, ought to hire James Comey to direct our investigation. Already got his clearances, knows the subject, man of integrity. I'm going to float that today and see what kind of reaction I get.
Would that be allowed?
I don't know why not. He's a free man. As of today, he doesn't have a job.
And he was supposed to come before the hearing tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen with that yet. Jeffrey Toobin is here with us. What's your take?
Well, Senator, I just was wanted to explore one thing. You say we should have a special counsel. There is no independent counsel law at the moment.
Right.
But do you think within the Justice Department tomorrow, Rod Rosenstein could appoint someone and say, we want that person in charge and that person will have independence?
He could legally, as you know, under the law, but I don't know if it rises to the level of restoring public confidence in this process, particularly since he has his fingerprints on this deal. He wrote the memo that was used by the Attorney General and the President to justify the firing. So I would much prefer some kind of special prosecutor, but as Chris points out, that requires an act of Congress, which is a pretty difficult thing to do around here. But I think as people absorb this and the implications of it, we may be able to move something with, some limited, and then of course that raises the question: the president has to sign an act of Congress. This is very dangerous stuff. This is the kind of thing that undermines people's confidence in our rule of law and the democracy of this country. And we've got to get to the bottom of it, and we've got to find some alternative that we can have somebody that has the credibility to pursue this investigation without fear or favor and get to the facts wherever they lead.
Senator, appreciate it. Obviously, we'll keep checking in with you. And I'll tell you what, you just raised a little bit of a daunting point there at the end. Even if the Republicans and the Democrats come together and pass legislation to have a special prosecutor, the president would have the ability to veto, and you would have to overcome that. These are hard times. Senator,
Yes,
appreciate you being with us.
Thanks,
Allison?
Chris, there are so many questions today facing the White House after the firing of James Comey. Why now? What does this mean for the Russia investigation? So we have our panel of experts standing by all morning. They're going to help us break down this huge story.